Hello there. This is Green Knight speaking. I'm going to try something new today. I have done something stupid with my shoulder, so I'm not really allowed to type too much at the moment. I should rest my shoulder and do my exercises and not hammer away at the keyboard and least of all spin that mouse around. So therefore, I'm branching into vlog territory. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about list building, specifically my Vassal World Cup 2021 list, which is the least imaginative list I've ever created. I really haven't played enough since the last World Cup. Basically, just a handful of real life games. Most of them Corellian conflict and a handful of games on Vassal. Most of them with a stupid Republic list I made with 8 consulars and some cluster bombs. So, but basically, I tried to make a real list for the World Cup, and what happened was that I made the list. I was pretty happy with it, and I submitted it. And then I had a little chat with RS and showed him the list, and then I realized it's pretty much the same list that I used for the Vassal World Cup 2020. So um, not a lot has happened since last year. So we have the Clone War stuff, but other than that, no new waves for the Galactic Civil War faction. So the only new thing to happen is the 1.5 rules and the new errata and the frequently asked questions and all of that. So it's not identical, but it is very close. Because basically last year I have had an ISD, an Onager, Ramodi, couple flotillas, some squads. The main difference this year is that sort of strategic advisory is out, so that's important. And I'm using more squads than I did last year because a complete lack of squads is it's hard to sort of finish off damaged ships when you don't really have any sweepers in your uh, list, and it's not good not to have a squad screen even with the ace cap. So let's go through my list and talk a little bit about the reasoning behind it. So basically, yeah, I'm using Kingston mostly. Some of you may know that I maintain the Warlords builder. It's not my builder, but I maintain it. But I prefer the database functions and the list filters and that on Warlords. But Kingston is much cleaner. The user interface is faster, easier to use, and also all those commercials on Warlords are driving me insane. So there is that. So basically, my idea here was that the Onager is pretty useful, uh, but that it is perhaps less useful than it used to be. I mean, we have the 1.5 evade rule, and I've had a few games where I have tried out the Onager against small ships, and of course, small ships can evade 2 dice at long range or discard to evade 3. And a small with, say, 2 evades, if you don't get enough accuracy, they can really shed a lot of damage going in. And of course, the Onager doesn't like those smalls hanging out in the side arcs at all. So I think taking an Onager in the new meta, which we don't really know what's going to be like, is pretty risky. I think we are going to see more MC30s. I think we are going to see Motma list, Kraken list, stuff that go fast, and then suddenly they are boom in your side arc, and you can shoot them, and your 100 plus point Onager is pretty worthless. So from that perspective, I don't think I think the Onager is still good, but that it has gone over the top. Yeah, and also that's me in the webcam. This is what I look like, and the reason I'm looking over to my other screen is because there I can see myself, so I get a little bit distracted by my own handsomeness. But anyway, let's pick up the honor group, and it's a test bed. I'm going to do a blog entry on that, why almost all the ship models are used in the game are always the cheaper ones, because of course points are at the premium. Cheap ships lets you put in more upgrades, more stuff. So for a more expensive version to really be worth it, it has to offer either a unique niche or the price compared to the extra stuff you get. Yeah, it really has to be worth your while. So, for example, an assault frigate 2A, 72 versus 81, where 72 is perhaps a bit high for the B, and then you go to the A version, and yeah, you get a few extra dice, but you get those dice out your ass and out your front, where you shouldn't really be shooting too much either, and you get the extra flak die, but you shouldn't really be flacking with this ship. You should be killing other ships. So it goes from fairly expensive to much too expensive, and yeah, maybe a bad example because the A has gained a little bit in popularity because of local fire control and reactive gunnery. But enough about that. So this is my onager, and here is the exception to my rule. I don't really like any of the other ISDs. Well, I like the Kuwait and the Simon. The ISD one, you cannot make me play it. But I really enjoy the Imperial 2 because it has decent range, decent everything. It has no weaknesses except, of course, the cost. And I'm totally gonna show into Gosanti, and that also has to do with fighting swarms. If you have only 3 ships, you might get into trouble if you run into 7 or even 8 ship lists, because as the first player, especially, you can't spend all your pass tokens in one turn. Same if you are a second player, because you can't spend pass tokens in consecutive turns. It doesn't help if you have 20 pass tokens, you don't. But if you had 20, you could only spend as many pass tokens as you have ships. So 4 is I think the optimum spot. 5 activations is of course very nice, but unless you know what you're doing and have a especially tailored list, for example, squad heavy, I don't think taking less than 4 ships is maybe not a great idea. So this is going to be Romodi, and I'm going this time to stick Romodi on my flagship. And I think that gunnery team is out for this time, so I figured I'll use local fire control. And there's this great little upgrade that I wanted to use last year, and that I see popping up more and more frequently, and that is Emperor Palpatine. Because, wow, his ability is extremely hurtful. You shoot me, you spend a token. You shoot me twice, you spend 2 tokens, and then I will totally salvo you in the face. Because let's be honest, that contain token is pretty worthless. So if I'm not taking gunnery team, I might as well go local fire control. And color me old fashioned, but I like electronic countermeasures. So that's how it's gonna be. I think link turbo laser towers. It's not. You don't always need to take it. I mean, the Imperial 2 doesn't have any red flak, for example, but in this case, I'm going to salvo, and I am probably going to shoot red dice at you. So it makes sense. And it's always nice to have that ability to snipe one single squad. And that's already 161 points. So I'm down to less than 100 points there. So I'm going to try to keep my ships as lean as possible to get the maximum amount of stuff in there. So what I missed last time around was having sort of a couple of squads that could strike ships pretty hard. And of course, the Marek Jenden combo is super for that. Uh, it would have been great to have the lady in the big bus, more than a key, but 27 is too much. Then I can only have 3 squads, and I'm not comfortable with that. So basically, this combo, Marek especially 21 points. I mean, he's probably too good for the price. I mean, let's be honest, he's too good for the price. That's just the way it is. But on the other hand, Empire completely lacks multi-purpose squadrons that can join in the squadron fight and can also do bombing runs. So he sort of compensates for that. You could say the same about Jen. He's part of that equation. I'm not completely happy with this, of course. I would have liked for FFG to sort of reimagine the squadrons, go back to the start, and make sure all the squadrons are viable, that you can run generics only if you want to, and that can be good, or you can run all aces, and that could also be good. But that would need maybe redoing some of the rules, some of the keywords, looking at every squad and their cost, of course. So that's probably out of the question. But if you sort of bumped Marek to 26 and made him unplayable, what then? What does a non-Sloan Imperialist take? Are we back to just spamming TIE bombers and running Reimer and a lot of ruthless strategists? And you see, I don't think at this point, I don't think that's a good idea because it would limit fleet building options for the Imperials too much. Rebels have it differently. They have tons of squadrons that are dual purpose. So, anyway, enough about that. I was talking about cheap and Comsnet. I'm not going to use munitions or parts for that. I don't have enough ships for that. I only have 2 real fighting ships. And what they need might vary from round to round. So I'm, of course, going to do the old Hondo trick. And there's no reason not to bring in Darth Vader. I'm not hoping I'm going to kill Ramodi or Palpatine, but you never know. Ordnance experts, veteran gunners, pretty standard. You could use Farnillian, of course, but she's more expensive than ordnance expert, so I like this combination. It's pretty good. You could also persuade me to use sensor teams. Ramodi Onagul lists, one of the few lists that can generate enough dice, and some of them will be bad, so spending a blank to set one of your other blank reds to an accuracy, or spending a blank black that you have re-rolled but it doesn't like you, so it stays blank. It's not a bad option, and especially not against smalls with their fucking 1/5 evades or salvo, that sort of thing. But on the other hand, with veteran gunners, you can sort of, yeah, sometimes your initial roll is so bad you just have to re-roll. That's the thinking. Not going to do the support team. Doing the super duper laser or particle cannon, as it's called. And yeah, I know it's boring, but Cataclysm is good. I would like to note that you don't always get to shoot first thing. Top of round 1, reds and blacks with concentrate fire and extra die from Ramodi. I'm not counting on that. We've been playing against onagers for a year now, and most people know how to set up and move to avoid this. But it's still a very useful card. It lets you generate a credible threat in round 1, which can help force the opponent into suboptimal setup situations. And I think that's valuable in and of itself. And also in like round 2, maybe even 3 sometimes. Don't forget, you can use Cataclysm to reposition a badly placed ignition token. Yeah, you moved, you thought you were going to shoot that ship, but your opponent moves away and oh wait, you have Cataclysm, so you spend a concentrate fire token at the top of round 3 to reposition, and boom, you get off a shot. It might not happen, but don't forget you can do that. So I thought long and hard about this, but I'm actually going to use Captain Ida on the test bed. Now, this sounds a bit counterintuitive, but it's not such a bad idea after all, because first of all, the honor wants to hang back and shoot at extreme range. Uh, so it doesn't initially get to use its salvo much. And whenever ships do close and start to shoot at it, and yeah, it's cool to salvo, but look at this onager. It has one black anti-squadron. Yes, it can be rerolled. So, wow, my salvo did maybe one damage to an attacking squadron. One, a single point. And okay, so I salvo your ship. And I've already used my red to run gunners probably. And I don't even have a red and a black. I have a red and a blue. And no rerolls. So, nah, average damage isn't up there. So, my thinking anyway is that by using Captain Nida and replacing the salvo token, I can, if I meet another onager, shed a couple of attack dice, a couple of red doubles. I mean, my opponents always roll well in Vassal. It's I'm going to roll shit, so that's just the way it is. So maybe I can cut down on some of that those ugly double reds. And of course, also at short range, you could flip hit crit black ACM into a blank, or well, get rid of a hit crit, turn it into a hit when a bomber attacks you in the later stages of the game. It won't be horrible. Against ships, yeah, it's a little bit touch and go, but when you look at the defense tokens and shields of the Onager, you can see that, well, Brace always gets locked down first. Well, most of the time anyway. Uh, at least until you are short on shields on the front there. So by bringing in evade, then you get another defensive. Now you have evade, brace, and redirect, and that's a pretty solid suite of defense token. Defensively, I mean, salvo is great too, but now your opponent has to decide, okay, it's extreme range. He shot me with his onager, and yeah, I did a lot of damage, and he locks my brace, so I got rid of 3 or 4 damage using my weight. It still hurts, but it's a lot better than not having that evade. I mean, we could go to electronic countermeasures, but that's 9 point, not 2. So there is that. Want to try to keep it cheap. Romodi could stay on the onager, but then I don't want to make this much more of a target than it already is. So I would rather they shoot at Palpatine and get hit in the face with salvo. Now I'm almost out of points. I only have a handful of points left here. So what do we do? That's 28 points. Well, that means we can get this combination. Mauler. Mauler is of course not as good as he used to be, provided you had old Intel versus new Intel. However, he is just as good as he was in non-Intel list. So here I use him as a threat. I hold him back. He can shoot, but he can also splash enemy squads. So it's useful. But his main thing here is he's just 15 points and he's a scatter race. And of course, you can see I now have 13 points left, which is enough for the man with the infamous grin. And he hits like a truck. And it's always useful to sort of stick him next to Jenden, where he can shoot at counter squads all day twice without taking any counter fire. That's a pretty awesome ability. So I'm not too unhappy with this setup. I only have one real combat ship, the ISD, and I have this as the sort of support ship slash sniper that will hopefully also draw some fire. But this time around, I have this combination and some better anti-squadron. And it will be interesting to see if 69 points of squadron is useful, or if I have sort of tricked myself into something really bad here. conventional wisdom is that you either go light squad, no squad, or full squad. So 70 points is sort of the worst you can do. But we'll try it. Last but not least, objectives. I have really done this in a sort of roundabout way. I have created a list, and then I start to think about the objectives. But that was mostly because I just wanted to simplify the process a bit. But you should always, when you start list building, have your objectives in mind, because I have no number, but no percentage for you, but the percentage of lists that I have made, and then I end up with, well, maybe a couple of good objectives and one obviously weaker objective that I know will be played again and again and again and again. That's not a great way to design a list. You should always have a trio of solid objectives that will utterly punish your opponent for picking first player. And of course, your list should be completely positive about going first as well, in case you're given first. So that's always my ideal. I always try to build with objectives in mind. So I'm not in the situation where this would have been a great list if only the yellow objective was any better. So there's that. Well, conventional wisdom still applies. If you have a flotilla, most wanted is the best objective. And that is just as true today as it was when the corset came out. Because good objectives should offer three things. They should offer a tactical advantage for the second player. And the tactical advantage here is I pick his most valuable or his most exposed or the ship I'm most afraid of and pick that as his objective ship. And then I pick one of my flotillas, the one that I'm going to run in the back, as my objective ship. So, well, he will get extra dice when he shoots at my objective ship, but I have a lot more control over who gets shot and not. So then I pick his onlogger or whatever, a ship. And then I get extra dice for it. That's a tactical advantage for me, a significant tactical advantage for me. There is also point scoring. Not only do I get a tactical advantage, I also have the opportunities to score bonus points. Now, my opponent could score bonus points, but he will have to work hard for those points. And even if he managed to kill my flotilla, that's only 23 points. But I may be getting 60 or 120 or who knows how many points. Maybe he has an SSD, and if I kill his SSD, then he will cry. It's going to be a 10-1. And that touches upon the final part of any good objective. The fallout risk should be very small. Because if potentially you will run into semi-common to common lists that can easily flip this objective on you, then it's not a good objective. It should be left at home. This is, for example, why fighter ambush almost never is a good objective. Because it takes away your deployment, so actually gives a tactical advantage to your opponent, and scoring opportunities are equal, so are only going to be taken, mostly at least, by an enemy squad heavy list. So you're at a tactical disadvantage, scoring opportunities are equal, and it can be flipped completely around if he wins the squad fight. So it's a horrible objective most of the time. Most wanted, tactical advantage, scoring opportunities, low fallout risk, great objective. Surprise attack is popular, but it offers a clear tactical advantage to the second player, but it also lets the second player, for example, bring out his squads far forward. So there is a risk for a fallout here. But of course, both the deployment and raid tokens, it can mean that the tactical advantage is so great that the fallout risk can be sort of It cannot be ignored, but it is acceptable. It's an acceptable risk. But the main problem with surprise attack, no bonus points. Wow, that's not good at all. I'm not going to walk you through all of these now, but suffice to say, if you have a flotilla, almost always most wanted is your objective. Defense. This is this is a strange thing because in Armada, yellow is generally speaking, again, there are exceptions, but it is generally the weakest objective category for some reason. So very often yellow gets picked, be it contested outpost or planetary ion cannon or whatever, it's gonna get picked. I have a couple of favorites now. Contested Outpost is a favorite still, but in the age of the Onager, a little bit touch and go there because you don't want to be hanging out in the same spot all game. Like predictable deployment, that's just too easy. I kind of like abandoned mining facility better. You plop down the station in the middle, and you also have control of at least one dust wheel, or you only get to control one dust wheel unless your opponent doesn't realize what his objective does. If you have enough ships, even small ones, you can just park them behind that dust wheel and start milking it. It's great if you have a grab shift reroute because then you can also pull the station towards you and other dust wheel away from the opponent. And then it reminds me of Contested Outpost, but with added defensive capabilities. You also get the projectiles, well, flying space whales. And being the first one, second player is the first one to move one of the space whales. It can be a pretty big advantage, actually. So it's if I don't have anything else to put in my list, I think abandoned mining facility is almost almost good enough. Um, but the opponent's control of one dust wheel could also sort of be turned against you because let's say you have an onlogger that want to shoot at his ships and then they hide behind the dust field. No, it's not for this list. So I'm going to take the classic asteroid tactics because, well, I get to set up first, set up all the obstacles. I take no damage from the rocks. This is good. I can bring in slugs, space slugs to help me win the squad fight or make the opponent land on them. This is also good, and I can create obstruction for a modi. So there's plenty of tactical advantages there. It's not huge tactical advantage, but it's significant. Um, so that's pretty good. Uh, the fallout risk, well, it's very moderate. I get rid of the station, so enemy squads can't heal there. I think that's a plus for a list like mine. Well, enemies can also recover stuff on the asteroids, but they take if ships do it, they take damage. If squadrons do it, then the space slugs will come get them. So yeah, it's not that much of an advantage for the first player, really. I don't usually land on the rocks a lot during a game, so that I think is often a minor benefit. But it happens once or twice, maybe per game. You can flip up a defense token, and for squadrons, nah, it doesn't happen too often because often a fight will be going on there, and the space slugs will be out, and yeah. So. The problem with asteroid tactics is that it offers no points. So if your opponent is forced to choose between most wanted and asteroid tactics, he will almost always choose asteroid tactics because it's the lesser of two evils. He doesn't want his most exposed or most valuable ship to take even more red dice from Ramodi, and that's understandable. So he will go with the slightly more nebulous advantage of asteroid tactics, knowing that at least he won't be giving me extra points. Sometimes he will regret it because the worms will get a bunch of his squadron. So basically, it's given me points anyway, but you can see the reasoning here. Navigation. Okay. There aren't that many good blues. You always have Solo Corona. It's unimaginative, but decent enough in some games. Superior precisions, yeah, sure, it can be very strong. It was perceived as very strong before, but I don't like it so much because you get the situation where the first player will set up very defensively, very cagey, and there is no room for him to make any mistakes during setup or for you to bluff him. And if he's squad heavy and you're squad heavy, then your scoring advantage is minimal. So that's actually an objective I moved away from. I think salvage run is underrated because it creates a big brawl in the middle. So if your fleet is scared towards that, it can often wrong foot the opponent and force a very brutal, violent melee of ships and squads in the middle. So I like it. But most of the time, it's pointless to talk about other blue objectives than infested fields, especially if you're running remotely. So again, the station is gone. I perceive that as an advantage to me. Obstacles are placed normal, but in this case, the extra guards come out to play immediately, and the difference here is I get to move both obstacles the extra guards are touching. And so no, and then I have to get to reposition Exogort. So I have every round two moving rocks or debris fields, and I can replace the Exogorts. And of course, the Exogorts can eat squads here as well. And with Exogorts positioning and moving obstacles, Ramodi gets a lot of extra opportunities, and there is a big risk of forcing your opponent to overlap obstacles. And there's the scoring part. Well, it's very moderate. Usually, you get a couple enemy. You might grab a couple. It depends on the board state. So it's but there is the scoring opportunities here. So yeah. So I think most of the time, if your opponent sees this, he don't want to play most wanted, and then he compares asteroid tactics and infested fields, and nah, infested it's got moving obstacles and points. So no, let's go with asteroid tactics. So let's just never save it. So there is my list for Vassal World Cup 2021. And yeah, my objectives aren't supposed to be open for all of you to see, but I think any skilled player, any veteran player of Armada should be able to guess that these are my objectives. The only exception is that I might have taken surprise attack instead of most wanted, and I could have done that, but this time I picked most wanted. So I'm not sure what you think. You can leave a comment in the comment section below, or you can head over to my I Have You Now's little Discord channel and have a chat there, or you can leave a comment on the blog, I suppose. So yeah, I think this worked pretty well. I saved myself typing several thousand words. I guess so. My shoulder is happy, and hopefully you're happy as well. So until next time, may the force be with you.